Imagine that, living with fear when you deal with the people who are supposed to protect you, but they may not come home. Now that was true for their parents, that was true for their parents' parents. This was supposed to go away. We're supposed to get better. But it's not happening, in part because of realities like this. This is newly released video of two Tulsa police officers on June 4th showing the arrest of one black teen and the handcuffing of a second for jaywalking. In the video, you can see the two teens walking down the middle of the road before they are approached by an officer on foot and a second in a squad car. Once the officers reach the teenagers, one officer could then be seen forcing a teen onto his stomach to handcuff him while holding him down with his arms and knees. I want you to listen to that part of this exchange.
What are you doing? What you guys doing? Why are you trying to choke his? Why are you trying to choke his neck, man?
Nobody's choking him.
You're choking him, man.
Nobody's choking him. Just chill out. What are you doing?
What you guys doing? Why are you trying to choke his? Why are you trying to choke his neck, man?
Nobody's choking him.
You're choking him, man.
Nobody's choking him. Just chill out.
The second teen is also handcuffed, but doesn't struggle and remains standing. Now, before you say, see, if you don't struggle, everything goes fine. Come on. Come on. It's about the reason that they stop you in the first place. You have to build in how would you feel if you felt you were being stopped for no reason, and it's not the first time you've heard about it. That's something that you live with. It's something that bothers you. Put it in context, okay? At another point in the video, you can hear the struggling teen saying, "Call my mom," and at one point threatening to beat the officer holding him if he gets out of his handcuffs. Now look, that is going to provoke a situation, but you have to understand the context. I'm not saying that people shouldn't comply with the police. There is law and order. It's just not as simple as the president wants to make it, that might makes right. You have to work together in these situations. Yes, you have to comply, but it has to be done, the policing, in a way that induces compliance by people who are in their right mind. The second teen can be heard repeatedly telling his companion to chill out during these moments, all right? It's a lot to unpack here. But we still have to deal with the fundamental issue of why this happened to them, okay? With us tonight is Tawana Adkins. She's the mom of one of the jaywalking teens, the aunt to the other one. And we have Demario Solomon Simmons, attorney. Counselor, thank you. Ma'am, I'm sorry to meet you because of this, but maybe this is the way it's supposed to be so we can have this conversation. Why do you believe your son and your nephew were stopped for jaywalking?
Chris, first I want to say thank you. It's good to talk to you again. I appreciate you having us on the show. I just want to, before we get started too far into the conversation,
Go ahead.
Push back. Teenagers, the only thing they were guilty of was walking while black. They were not jaywalking. They were actually walking down the street, had been followed for quite some time by those officers. And there was no sidewalk. And when you see the officer actually run up and grab the 13-year-old illegally, they were crossing over to the street so they can be more out in the open because they were so terrified of being killed by these officers who were following them.
Is that what they told you?
Absolutely. And that's what they told their mom.
And-
And absolutely zero crime committed. There was no reason for them to be contacted by the police. And Chris, this is why this happens. You have this unnecessary police contact that can escalate so quickly.
What did they tell you, Counselor, about why they stopped the kids in the first place?
Well, the stop is for jaywalking, allegedly. And it's bogus. It's pretextual. It's stop and frisk. It's racial profiling. It's life in America for black people, particularly black young men. And I want to say something else, Chris, about when the 13-year-old was actually physically and violently grabbed from behind. That triggered him. I don't want to get too specific, but he is a victim of trauma, that he's had some specific devastating trauma in his life. And that was a specific reason for him when he was grabbed that way of his reaction. And one of the reasons why he was screaming for his mother, which reminded you of George Floyd in another context. So there's a lot behind what happened, and as you said, a lot to unpack. And this is what is not factored in oftentimes in these encounters. You talk about, what the police are thinking. What about this young man who lives in Tulsa, which is a place with racially disparate treatment of black people for 100 years?
Let me Let me come back to what happened at the stop in a second, Council, but let me just bring Mom in here just to get a perspective on what this meant to you when you found this out about your son and what he explained to you, what you believe about why this happened. Ms. Atkins, what do you believe?
I believe that they were just racially profiled. They were singling them out.
The idea of jaywalking, what does that mean to you?
Jaywalking is walking down a busy street with sidewalks, street lights, and walking without a walk signal. That's what jaywalking is to me.
How did your son explain how it felt in that moment to him and why he felt this happened to him?
He didn't know why. He just kept asking why. You know, why, Mom? Why did they do me like that? Why did they do this to us? I said, son, I don't know.
And without getting too much into personal information about a child, the counselor talks about trauma. As you know, the pushback in this situation will be, well, if he had just done what his cousin did, he would have been okay, but he resisted. What do you want people to know about your son?
That this incident triggered him. He's had some prior trauma and doesn't like to be touched, and this just triggered. It's like pulling a Band-Aid off an old scar.
Now, Ms. Atkins, forgive me for a second, all right? Counselor, let's have the real conversation here, because we know what minds have to be made open on this. It's not me, it's not you, it's not people who've lived around people of different color and have seen different situations. There are a lot of people who will see this video and they'll see everything that's wrong with this kid and say, he's fighting the cops. He's fighting the cops. He's just going to kill the cops. He's spitting at the cops. You know, this is exactly why the police have to worry about their own lives. This isn't about this teenager. It's about these cops having to deal with somebody who wants to hurt them when they're just enforcing the law. How do you respond?
First of all, I would say they're not enforcing the law. It was the officers who broke the law by violating their constitutional rights, by searching and seizing them without probable cause. So, Chris, they are 13-year-old kids who have the right to walk down the street to the relative's house free from police contact. That's number one. Number two, there is no evidence that we've seen that the 13-year-old hit or kicked or headbutted this officer. Yes, he was moving, and there are very good reasons for that, but he was handcuffed. He was being manhandled, and he was being beaten. We have video of him being kicked several times. We have witnesses who saw this. So I would say it is about the activity and the actions of these officers who violated the law because they decided that these teens had committed the crime of walking while black. And then once they grabbed this individual from behind, that's a battery, Chris. How would we feel, you feel, or anybody feel if you're walking along, minding your business, and you see someone following you that has on TV, every image you see is black men being beaten and women, pummeled and killed by officers, and now you grab from behind without any reason.
People will say the problem is the media exposure, that the reality is that this almost never happens, and it's just people like me telling the stories that get people all worked up, and they think this is going to happen all the time when this is really just an exception that almost never happens. It's blown out of proportion.
Well, unfortunately for us who are black and live in America, this happens all the time. This has happened to me on several occasions. I've been racially profiled. I'm a former University of Oklahoma football player, have a law degree, have a master's degree, and I get racially profiled more often than I can count. This happens all the time. Racism is not new. The cameras and the video of it is new.
What is the disposition of the case right now, Counselor?
Right now, they put 2 bogus felony charges on Ms. Atkins' son, 13-year-old charged with 2 felonies. And so we're going to fight those charges. I've reached out to the Tulsa police chief. I have not heard back from him. And we'll be reaching out to the district attorney's office because we think these charges should be dropped. Both teens suffered, Ms. Atkins' son suffered physical and emotional injuries. They're seeking medical attention for that. Her nephew they're petrified to even go outside. They're so afraid. And so we're going to make sure they get the type of treatment that they need. And we want these officers to be disciplined because this cannot be okay in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or America.
They say there's an investigation going on of this incident. We haven't heard anything else since Wednesday. We'll keep an eye on that. Ms. Adkins, I'm going to let you go. I don't want you to have to, just steep in this situation. And I'm sorry for you having to be present during a hard conversation with the council, but we got to get the issues out there. Otherwise, we're not going to move forward. I just want to get your take as a mom and a local to a statement by a member of the police in Tulsa, Police Department Major Travis Yates, who said all the research says we're shooting African Americans about 24% less than we probably ought to be, based on the crimes being committed. Is that just a bad turn of phrase? Was he taken out of context, or does that translate something else to you?
It translates something else to me.
Chris, I can tell you that Major Yates has had a long history of these type of comments because he is a top official in the Tulsa Police Department, and this is how they feel. This is what policing is here in Tulsa. He's also the officer that said that this was Black Lives Matter means of the war on police. And this is the type of mentality that allows an individual like Betty Shelby, who shot my client Terrence Crutcher with his hands up in the air, and allows her to continue in Oklahoma to teach other officers how to be a police officer.
Ms. Adkins, thank you for talking to us about this. We'll stay on the situation. We'll monitor the situation. That's the job. I wish you well at home. Demario Solomon Simmons. As always, counsel, thank you for making the case.
Hey, so good to see you, Chris. We'll see you soon.
God bless and be well.
All right.
All right, Seattle, right? This is a situation people want to see stop. Is it as simple as that? Hell no, it's not as simple as that. It's going to take a long time.